Today we'll discuss Turing machine. So Turing machine, it is automata which can accept type 0 language. So type 0 means I've told you it is a superset of all the other types. Why is it called superset? Because type 0 means there is no specific rule for type 0 language or for type 0 grammar. That means any language, any grammar can be as a part of type 0. So Turing machine is more generic, is the most generic automata. Basically, it can accept any type of other languages. And Turing machine is the most generic system automata by which we can design any type of generic automatic system. So first, first go to this point. Turing machine is defined by 7 tuple. Defined by 7. It is like PDA. Also PDA defined by 7 tuple. Does 7 tuple. What are those tuples? Capital Q, sigma, tau, delta, small b. Look at small b is a new symbol here. Small b, q0 and f. All the symbols are there. But here new symbols are small b and also tau. In case of PDA, tau represents set of push down symbols or the symbols which are stored in stack. But here tau is not that. What is tau? Because in Turing machine there is no stack concept. So so what is then tau and what is then small b? I'll come this point. Okay. Look at this. Look at this tape. This is the input tape. Okay. This is the input tape which where we store the all the inputs or input string that we have to process. And it is the finite control, or you can say our logical automatic design, automatic system that will scan each input from the input tape. Now, here, one important point you can note that we have written in the head, this is called head. This head will scan each symbol one by one. And here we have written r/w head. What is the meaning of r/w? R/w means read write head. In our previous DFA, NFA, PDA, we have seen that from input tape we can only read symbol from input tape. But in those automata we can't write symbols into the tape. But here this is called read write head because in this head or in this tape, so Turing machine can read symbol from this step, as well as Turing machine can write symbols in this step. So you can imagine, you can try to map that this step, you can say it is like a stack, it's like the stack that is used in PDA. But it is not stack. Instead of storing the symbol into stack, we are storing the symbol into this step. That means this step is all. From this step we read input, and also inside this step we write the input or write the symbol after going to the next stage. Like in PDA, after going to the next state, we produce some symbols. Those are pushed into the stack. But here, since there is no stack, this input tape, it is used to read input as well as it is used to store some symbols after going to the next stage. So this input tape is very, very, very important. One more thing, that this read write head can move to right as well as can move to left. In the previous DFA, NFA or PDA, we have seen that whenever you have input tape, in case of PDA, DA for NFA, say this is our read head. In those cases, DFA, NFA or PDA, this head only can move to right direction. It cannot move to left direction. But this is the new thing in PDA, where this head can move into right direction as well as into left direction. So after going to the next state, there are two possibilities. That is, the head can move to right or head can move to left. That depends on your string that has to be processed. Okay. So 2 points in Turing machine. 2 points, like sorry, 3 points. 3 points are there. So first point, I have told you, this input tape, we read input from this input tape as well as we store the symbols after going to the next step into this step. First point. Second point, the head is read write because this head can be used to read as well as to write symbols into the tape. And lastly, third point is sorry, third point is that in this read write head, this head can move to right direction as well as to left direction. So there are 3 points, new points, which are associated with Turing machine concept. Okay. So going to our previous. So now we define the 7. What is the 7 tuple? 7 tuples. First one is capital Q. It is clear. Set of states. Sigma. It is set of input. Then tau. Here tau is, look at, non-empty set of tape symbols. I've told you here input tape is not just like a tape that is used to store input symbols. Input tape, there are inputs as well as we also store the symbols. Those are produced after going to the next step. That is, input tape is very, very important. So all the symbols, those are stored in input tape. Those symbols are called tau. And sigma, it is also input. It is stored in input tape. So you can say sigma is basically a part of tau. Right? Sigma is basically a subset of tau because sigma is input and tau is all the symbols. Those are stored in input tape. And in those symbols, input is one of them. So you can say sigma is subset of tau, and tau is all the symbols. Those are stored in input tape. Then delta is transition function. So how we can define delta? Look, Q cross tau. Capital Q means present state. Cross tau, you're getting some mapping. Cross tau, we take input from input tape, and input tape means tau. So Q cross tau, these things implies present state and present input from input tape. Goes to capital Q, that is the next state, cross tau. Here tau is the symbol that is generated by the Turing machine, and this tau symbol is to be placed or is to be put into the tape. That's why look at one important thing. When we are considering input, we have written tau. When we are considering the output that is to be written into the tape, we also written here tau. So tau is here everything. From tau we take input, and also in tau we write the input. And next is L comma R comma stop. This thing defines what is the type of movement of the head. I have told you in Turing machine the head can move to left, to right, or it can stop. So here after taking the present state, after taking the present input from input symbol from input tape, it decides the next state. It decides the next input or next symbol to be pushed, or sorry, to be put into the tape, that is tau. And also it decides the movement of the head. What will be the next cell that is to be scanned, whether the next cell will be left or will be to the right, or whether the head will be stopped. Okay. That is the delta or transition function for Turing machine. This is the input set or input scenario. This is the output scenario. Next, small b. What is small b? It is a new symbol. Small b basically denotes blank. Blank means in that cell there is no more symbol. When in input tape in Turing machine there is no more symbol, there is no symbol. Basically it is empty. That thing is denoted by small b. So small b means blank, but it is empty. So sometimes you also denote it by hash also. So hash or small b, these two symbols are normally used to define blank position in the input tape. And Q0 is the initial state and capital F is a set of final states. So these are all 7 tuples. Okay, up to this, is it clear to all of you? If any query, you may ask. Up to this definition of 7 tuples of Turing machine and how Turing machine is different from DFNFA and PDA. That's a basic concept. Just you know the basic concept. Is it clear? No query? So may I proceed to next step? Next part?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So next part is, look at the written part. Instantaneous description of Turing machine. We know in PDA there is a ID concept. In PDA, in ID, there are 3 symbols: present state, present input, and topmost element in the stack. The 3 symbols are used to denote ID in PDA. Similarly, in Turing machine, there is also ID, instantaneous description. So what is this ID? So go to the example. These are examples. So take this example. This is our input tape. Okay, and say input tape, there are symbols A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, A6, A7. There are symbols, and there's a B before starting the input, and there is B after ending the input. So B means blank. So that means before A1 and after A7 there is no more symbol. So it is called B. And read write head is there, and there is a finite control. And let at this position when the head is pointing to A3. So let at the presently the head is pointing to A3. At this position, our present state is Q3. Let our present state is Q3 when our head is pointing to A3 position in tape. Now in this scenario, look at, there are actually 3 sections. First section is left to the current head. Next section is right to the current head. Okay, and one section is the current head. So there are 3 portions or 3 sections in this input tape. So left section of the current head, this one, that is BA1, A2, it is called alpha. And the right section to the current head, that is A4, A5, A6, A7, and D, that is called gamma, or the right section of the current head. And where the current head is pointing to, that is A3, and your present state is now Q3. So in place of A3, okay, one more thing, sorry. A3 normally it is written in part of right part. I've told you A3 is a third part. No, actually A3 is belongs to the second part. Okay, can I draw this scenario? This is the left part. Okay, this is the actually basically right part. And A3, that is your present input, it actually belongs to the right part. Okay. Now here this left part is alpha, this right part is gamma. Okay, and the present state that is called Q3, it is basically beta. So we divide logically or virtually this whole scenario into three sections: alpha, beta, gamma. Okay, so where alpha is B A1 A2, that is the left to the present state. Present state is Q3, and right to the present state is A3, A4, A5, A6, A7, where the present input A3 also belongs. So this scenario is alpha, beta, gamma. Where beta, remember, beta is the present state. Okay, beta is the present state, and your present input Q3 that belongs to the gamma part, right section. Okay, so this type of representation, alpha, beta, gamma, is called ID in Turing machine. ID, or instantaneous description in Turing machine. So got it this point?
Yes, sir.
Got it? What is ID? What is ID? What is alpha, beta, gamma? Normally in Turing machine, when we will talk about ID, remember we will talk about alpha, beta, gamma. And one thing again, I repeat, the present state, it goes to beta part, and the present input, that where the our read write head is currently pointing to, this present input, it goes to the gamma part, and this left part total is alpha part. Okay, so this is called ID of Turing machine. So next very very important things, there is a concept, charge Turing thesis, charge Turing hypothesis. What is this charge Turing thesis? Okay. Look at the thesis. Look at the actually just statement that is written inside the thesis. Everything algorithmically computable is computable by a Turing machine. Very very important line. Everything algorithmically computable is computable by a Turing machine. What does it mean? Look at this line. This is about the nature of functions whose values are effectively calculable, or the functions whose values are not algorithmically computable. This is the deal. This thing deals with this. What does it mean? Say we have a function. Okay, we have a function. Now this function, if is it if it's possible to implement this function through any programming language, say C, Java, Python, whatever, that means there is a valid algorithm to implement or to execute the function. But if that function cannot be implemented through any programming language, that means there is no valid algorithm to implement the function. So these two things is very clear. So when any function, anything is algorithmically completed, that means there is a valid algorithm to execute or to implement the function. That means that function can be implemented through any programming language. But whenever there is no valid algorithm, or we can't write algorithm, we can't write any valid steps, any algorithm to implement a function, then that function cannot be implemented through any programming language. Okay, so here this thesis tells that if there is any function for which if we can write an algorithm, then that function can be computable by Turing machine. Can I repeat? If there is any valid function, valid means if there is any function for which we can write a valid algorithm, then that function can be implemented through a Turing machine, or then you can design a Turing machine for that function. But if there is no valid algorithm for that function, then that function cannot be implemented through Turing machine, or we can't design a Turing machine for that function. Therefore, you can say Turing machine is basically a main logical component, abstract logical component by which we can start designing any function. Initially, if we can design any Turing machine for any function, that means we can write algorithm for the function. But if we can't design any Turing machine for any function, that means we can't write any algorithm for the function. Okay, that's why from Turing machine, from the invention of Turing machine, today's computer comes. So today's computer, actually today's computer is based on von Neumann architecture, right? So what is von Neumann architecture? There is a control unit, there is a memory, there is the input output. So basically von Neumann architecture or computer, whatever, it can execute any function for which there is algorithm. But if for any function there is no algorithm, then computer cannot execute it. We know it. That means Turing machine, basically the theory or the logic behind the invention of computer. So when Turing machine comes, when the design of Turing machine comes, then the design of von Neumann architecture also comes. Okay, that's why Turing machine is so important. With the invention, with the starting of Turing machine, the concept of executing function with algorithm, it comes. Because Turing machine is the base which gives this idea that if there is a logic, if there is any algorithm to implement a function, then we can design a Turing machine for that. And if we can design a Turing machine for that, that means we can design a computer for that. Okay, all of you understood what is Charles Turing thesis? It is very, very important. It is simply a thesis or simply a statement, but it is very, very important, very, very useful, very, very practical statement. Is it true? All of you, what do you think this statement about this statement? Have you understood this statement?
Yes.
If anybody any query, then you may ask. Okay, that means all of you understood what is thesis, right?
Yes.
So that's why this thesis is very, very important. Now goes to another part, different types of Turing machine. Now first one is Turing machine with two-dimensional tape. We know what is tape, input tape. Now Turing machine, we can design Turing machine with two-dimensional tape. How does it look? So look at the second part. Look at this. Look at this. Two-dimensional. Look at this. This is two-dimensional. Dimension one, dimension. That means Turing machine can be a two-dimensional array, where this part is infinite, also this part is infinite. So here your input tape, or sorry, here your read-write head should be powerful, such that it can scan row wise as well as it can scan column wise. Then one-dimensional tape. I already know it. This is all dimension. So simply there is a one dimension. There is only one tape, only one dimension, and in this tape, in left hand side, right hand side, both the side will be infinite. Next, Turing machine with multiple tapes. So we can design Turing machine with multiple tapes. So for that, go to our next example. In this case, so diagram, I'm going to diagram. In this case, it is like this, in this way. Say it is step number 1. It is step number 2. It is step number 3. In this way, there are, say, n number of tapes. So multiple tapes are there. Okay. And in that case, we can use multiple head also. Say this head can this step, this head can this step, this head scan this head tape, and this head can be. So in this way, if there are k number of tapes, that means we have k number of heads. This is called k tape Turing machine. K tape, because there are k number of tapes are there. K tape Turing machine. So you can think this is a will be most powerful Turing machine, because simultaneously you can handle multiple tapes because you have multiple head also. But design of this Turing machine is also complicated. Next, Turing machine in multiple heads. This is this point. Turing machine in multiple heads. Here in this case, you have only one tape. Tape is only one, but multiple heads can be there. Multiple heads can be there. Say this is head number 1, head number 1, head number 2, head number 3. So this is head 1, head 2, head 3. So with one input tape, we can also design multiple heads. Also, it will be powerful, but you have to design multiple heads, so it is also complicated. Next, Turing machine with infinite tape. Basically, this point is also already covered in, I think, point number 2. Normally, when you design Turing machine, in both the ends, either right or left, we assume that it is infinite. But logically, it is infinite. Then next point, non-deterministic Turing machine. What is non-deterministic Turing machine? It is basically it is a type of NFA. You know what is NFA? In NFA, for a particular input, for a particular state, there can be more than one next state. Number 2, in NFA, there can be 5. That is, for some input, there may be null transitions. Okay, so this type of concept is also allowed in Turing machine. That means when there is a for a particular state, say Q1, and for a particular input, say A, there can be multiple moves. For the same input A, there are multiple moves. Say for A, from Q1, you can go to Q2, Q3, Q4. So from Q1 state, for the same input A, you are going to different states, Q2, Q3, Q4. That is, it is like NFL style, right? So it will be a non-deterministic Turing machine. But when for a particular state, say Q1, for a particular input, say A, always you go to say next state Q2. That is the present state, next state is fixed for a particular input. Then it will be called deterministic Turing machine. Okay, and similarly, when there will be no phi, all the inputs will be defined for all the states. It is also a deterministic Turing machine. But when for some input, for some state is not defined, then that Turing machine will be called non-deterministic Turing machine. Okay? So like NFA, there is also two things, non-deterministic Turing machine and deterministic Turing machine. So next point, computable function. Computable function. I think already I have discussed what is a function or valid function that can be implemented through a valid algorithm. Same
Yes,
thing.
sir. Yes.
What is computable function? A function is said to be computable if there exists an effective procedure or algorithm for eventually the function which gives the any input or set of input values for which function is defined and produces correct result and halts is called, and halts within halts means here the Turing machine stops, halts in a finite amount of time. That means when say you have a function f, okay, and say this function takes input a and b, and for this input say function f always can produce a result, say result is x. That means in this case the input set is finite and also the output set is also finite. It may be also x comma y also. That is, input set is finite and output set is also finite. So when a function behaves like this, it takes a finite set of input, and also it can produce a finite set of output. That means this function is called computable. That means we can write a valid algorithm to compute this function. Okay. In this case, a function can be two types of computable: partially computable or total computable. What is partially computable? Say we define a function f where you have written n equals to a by b. Here there is a problem. What is the problem? Problem is that if b is greater than 0, then this function is okay. But if this b is equal to 0, then this function is not okay. Am I right? Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes. So if the value of b is 0, then this function is called non-computable function, because you can't get a valid result, a finite value. Okay. But when the value of b is greater than 0, easily you can get the value of this n, a by b. So this function f will be called partially computable. Why? Because this function is computable for not all values of a and b. But when say for function for function f1, you are computing n, that is a plus b. In this case, for any values of a and b, that is for greater than 0 value, then there is a valid value of n. That means so so we have discussed till now. There are two types of computable functions: partial functions and total functions. Okay, acha, all of you please tell me. Till now we have discussed what is Turing machine. This is just basic concept Turing machine. 7 tuples. What is IDU Turing machine? Different types of Turing machines, and charge Turing hypothesis, and what is computable function. So till now, have you any problem? Any question you may ask? Just till now.
No, sir.
Till now we have gone through some basic idea and basic concepts. So next class we will design Turing machine, but today we'll discuss the theory behind it. So may you start the next part of your Turing machine?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So next, look at, I've written halting problem. Very, very, very important in Turing machine. Halting problem. In Turing machine, what is the meaning of halt? Just I've told you here, halt means Turing machine stops working. Turing machine, movement of head, stop. Okay. So then what is halting problem? Halting problem, somehow it sounds like that it could not halt or it could not stop like that. Okay. So how it comes? Say, okay, I'm giving some example. Say you have a Turing machine T1, TM1 Turing machine. Okay. Now this Turing machine can accept or can execute an algorithm A. Now whether Turing machine T1, TM1 can execute algorithm A or can process algorithm A, how can you decide it? We can decide it by we will scan an input for the algorithm by applying this Turing machine TM1, and we will process whole the string, whole the input. After scanning all the input or all the characters in the input, if Turing machine can halt properly or can reach final state, then you can say yes, Turing machine M1 can access or can implement algorithm A. But without doing it, that is without processing A by TM1, can we say that TM1 can execute, TM1 can accept A? Normally, it is not possible. Whether a particular string, a particular algorithm, particular input is accepted or can be processed by a automata, it can be said once we will process the string by the automata. Before processing, we can't say it. Okay. So this is the theorem. So say we have a Turing machine TM1 and it wants to process algorithm A or string that belongs to algorithm A. Now say we have another Turing machine TM, okay, TM2. Now our task is to design such a Turing machine TM2 that can say in advance that whether TM1 can accept A or not. Again I repeat, we want to design a Turing machine TM2 such that this TM2 can say in advance that TM1, whether TM1, Turing machine 1, can accept or can process algorithm A or not. So this type of saying, this type of comment, this type of decision by TM2, is it possible? It is not possible. So it is not possible logically that TM2 can say in advance that yes, TM1 can accept it, or TM1 can halt. TM1 will halt over A. This type of thing that it cannot be said by TM2. So that means we can't design such a Turing machine TM2. So this type of concept that you can't design a third Turing machine or second Turing machine that can design whether the TM1 can accept A or not. This type of problem is called halting problem. Why halting problem? Because TM2 cannot say whether TM1 will halt or not on A. So halting of TM1 over A, it cannot be decided by TM2. So it is a halting problem of Turing machine. That is, for any Turing machine, we can't say in advance that it can halt for a given string A or for a given algorithm A. This is called halting problem for Turing machine. Tell me, is it understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it is written just whatever I have told you. It is written over here. It is written over here. Okay. So next. So look at this statement I've written. There is no Turing machine exist which computes the function AMW. What is this function? Look at the function AMW. Basically, this HMW. Basically, this function HMW. This function decides whether Turing machine M, here M is a Turing machine, whether Turing, here M is a Turing machine, okay, whether Turing machine M will halt for string omega. So this function is the function that will compute or that will say that whether Turing machine M can halt over omega string. So that is written. We cannot execute or we cannot write any function like HMW which is defined to be true if machine M halts on input omega and false otherwise. So this function HMW return two values, either true or return false. When return true, when this function compute or when this function can decide that capital M can accept omega. But when this function cannot decide that whether capital M can accept omega, then returns false. Okay. So here capital M is a Turing machine. So this type of function h cannot be defined, cannot be created such that it can say true or false depending on the acceptability of omega for capital M. So that means this type of function cannot be designed by any another Turing machine that will execute this function. So our task is that we can't design any another Turing machine that can say that this function can be executable. Okay. So it is not possible that this function h is executable or not. It can be said by another Turing machine. No, it cannot be possible. That's what it is called halting problem. So look at the statement. Say this is that is no Turing machine exists which can compute the function HMW, which is defined to be true if machine M halts or input omega or false otherwise. So we can't design any Turing machine that can execute this function H, because function H is not possible. Okay. Now recursively enumerable language. So we know Turing machine can accept type 0 production, and type 0 production is basically known as phrase structure language or phrase structure grammar. Okay, and phrase structure language is also known as recursively enumerable language. So this language basically is the language that is accepted by Turing machine. So look at the language. For a given Turing machine, capital M defined by 7 tuple, where hash is basically blank. I've told you blank is defined by 2 symbols, either B or hash. Okay, so for a given Turing machine, capital M equal to Q sigma delta 7 tuples. The set of strings omega belongs to L is said to be accepted by M. So when we say that a given string is accepted by Turing machine, look at the line. When you start from initial state Q0, then there will be a blank, then there will be your entire string omega, then there will be another blank. That means you will put blank before omega and after omega, and before these 3 things you will put your initial state, that is Q0. After processing this omega, multiple star means multiple steps. Here multiple star means multiple steps. If you reach state where you reach capital F, look at the state capital F. That is, if you can reach capital F final state, where before final state there may be some alpha string in input and there may be some beta string in input. I've told you this is state in place of it should be final state. Okay, and alpha may have any character, any string, and gamma may is a string, it is a state that should be final state at last. So again I repeat this thing, starting from initial state by your entire string, by null, by blank, before string and after string, and after processing this entire string omega, if we can reach final state F, where alpha may be before F, beta may be before F, that is alpha capital F B, that will be your ID, at last ID, then we say that this omega is accepted by Turing machine. So very basic concept. So when we can reach final state for a given string starting from the initial state Q0, then we say that this omega is accepted by the Turing machine. But say if we reach in this scenario, this type of scenario, like you reach alpha Q5 gamma, where Q5 not belongs to final state. So after processing your omega, if you reach in this scenario alpha Q5 gamma, where alpha is not final state, then we then we can't say, then we say that omega is not accepted by the Turing machine. So that means to be that means the omega to be accepted, omega to be accepted by Turing machine, the condition is that this state q phi, this state q phi should be final state. In place of q5, it may be q6, it may be q7, any state. So q basically the last state should be final state. Then you can say yes, omega is accepted. But remember one thing, again I tell you, with the final state there may be some alpha part, there may be some beta part. So don't bother about the alpha beta part, but your last state should be final state after processing the whole stream. And what is last one? What is universal Turing machine? Universal Turing machine. It is a Turing machine that can simulate an arbitrary Turing machine on arbitrary input. Okay, that is we want to design a Turing machine that can also execute another Turing machine. That is, you can say a Turing machine that can monitor, that can be a superset of all other Turing machine. This type of concept is called universal. From the name you can see universal Turing machine. So this type of Turing machine is called universal Turing machine. So practically it is a theoretical concept. Practically von Neumann architecture, it is called universal Turing machine. Why? Anybody can answer this question? Why practically von Neumann architecture is called universal Turing machine? What is the logic behind it? Anybody can say this? What is the logic behind it? Anybody?
नहीं पता सर.
You can try. Why von Neumann architecture is called universal Turing machine? Why? What is the reason? No one. Dekho, I've told you universal Turing machine. What is this? Universal Turing machine basically a Turing machine that can process or that can implement all other Turing machine. So any other Turing machine can be designed by this Turing machine, universal Turing machine. So basically universal Turing machine is like type 0. It is superset. So it can access, it can process all other languages like that. So von Neumann architecture, look at this concept. You know what is von Neumann architecture? It is the very basic or fundamental concept of computer. You know it, where there is a input output unit, there is a control unit, there is a ALU unit, and just think, by this ALU, control unit, IO unit, this is a very basic unit by which any advanced computer can be developed. As you think, to develop any advanced system, any advanced automatic system, input output, ALU, control unit, memory, these are required. These 4 units are required. Just think, for our students smartphone, also these are there. For any automatic system, these 4 units are basic fundamental units. Which are these 4 units? Control unit, ALU, IO unit, and memory unit. That means without these 4 units, we can't design any automated system. And these 4 units initially designed or proposed by von Neumann architecture. That means by von Neumann architecture, we can design any type of automated system. This is a basic. But then this is a basic 4 units. But then you can add more units. Say you want to add more 5 units. Yes, you can add. But these are main memory, ALU, control unit, and IO. These are basic 4 units. Without these 4 units, you can't start with these 4 units, you can add extra more units. Yes, it is okay, but these are 4 units are required to design your automatic system. That's why von Neumann architecture is called universal Turing machine, because this is the concept from which you can design any automated system. Have you understood? Have you understood
Yes, sir.
Yes.
why von Neumann is called architecture is called Turing machine? Okay. So today's class is up to this. So today we discuss, again I repeat the summary is the whole concept. What is Turing machine? 7 tuple. What is the idea of Turing machine? What is charge Turing hypothesis? What is halting problem? Different types of Turing machine. Then what is when you can say that a string is accepted by Turing machine? This is this one I have discussed. And then lastly, what is universal Turing machine? So this type of theory you need to just clear out first what is Turing machine. Okay, so first I will share this note in Schoology. So we'll go through the notes. Next class we'll design Turing machine. We'll discuss how we can design a Turing machine and how we can test whether a given string is accepted or not by Turing machine. So next class we will discuss 2 things. First one, how to design Turing machine for a given string or for a given language, and second one, how to test whether a given string is accepted or not by a Turing machine with some examples. Okay, so that's all today. Thank you.